Hello, can everyone hear me perfectly? Great. Thank you everyone for allowing me to be here today and to give a presentation. My name is Eve Naji. I'm an architectural designer based here in Lagos, Nigeria. You can hit next, please. Next, please. Right. And I'm the founder of Adapt. So Adapt is an architectural design practice based here in Lagos. We build shared solutions for shared problems through shared intelligence. Next, please. We build environmentally intelligent architecture and urban solutions. Next. We also create our own innovative building materials to really challenge what's out there and create alternative options. Next, please. And then we also create understanding of our environment through research, data visualization, by mapping and sharing this in open source platforms. Next, please. The, the thing about Adapt as an architectural practice is that we have a new client, and our primary client is the environment. And the environment is an extremely demanding client. Next, please. The environment is demanding that we find new ways to cope with increased flooding. Next. It's demanding that we find new ways to stand the heat. Next. And it's demanding, most importantly, that we adapt. Next, please. What I'd really like to share with you all here is a thinking and ideology that we've developed in our practice. So this project is called Riverside Resilience. It's a project that we've been doing in Anambra. Next. I think we all know, we've seen this picture a couple of times. Anambra is devastated by increased flooding. And so there's something really interesting about this photo. You can see some rooftops and houses, but what you can't see are the buildings that are below the water. So in 2022, Anambra recorded 6 meters of flooding because of the flooding of the Niger River. Next, please. So we were invited to go to Nzam, which is a farming community, to look at how we can start mitigating flood risk in Anambra. It's a lowland community. Next, please. Next. It's a lowland community that is an agricultural town. It practices traditional architecture, and it's giving in to the constant yearly flooding. And we wanted to understand, why is this happening time and time and time again? Next, please. Next. So we first facilitated a workshop with the local government, also with farmers, also with the agricultural communities there, to find out if there were indigenous ways of dealing with a flood, if there was something that we had missed a while ago, and if we can innovate on top of this. Next. This is our research team, and the research team is built of the local community, farmers, also people from the Nnamdi Azikiwe University. We've been partnering with Henrik Boll Foundation, Anambra State Government, as well as the University of Architecture in Belleville, Paris, to understand how we can start building innovatively for this recurrent problem. Next, please. So we did. We spent some time researching, spent some time studying the hydrology, geology, also urban studies, architectural studies, to come up with a nice big document and then understand what exactly was taking place there. Next. It's quite simple. So Anambra is facing great environmental degradation. It's leading to ecosystemic dysfunction, which is leading to inconsistent precipitation, which is flooding the environment. And that means that the farmers cannot harvest early enough. They stay because they don't want to leave their crops, and then there's delayed evacuation, and then the flooding devastates everyone and everything. Next. So we decided, why not actually just build a crop storage that's elevated so that they can harvest early, store their crops, evacuate, and then come back, make enough money to be more resilient and self-sufficient. Next, please. So we came up with this big, beautiful building. Next. It's an elevated crop storage that allows them to be able to store their crops 6 meters above the ground, and also creates a community center for them. Next. We developed this to use local materials that were around them, and we kept getting the question over and over again, what happens when the water goes above 6 meters? Next, please. So we had to get more feedback. We had to understand what we're building, why we were building, and we came to a very clear conclusion. Next, please. We realized that we implemented our solution in the middle of the problem. You go next. What we had to do was go all the way back to the source of the problem and implement there. Rather than positioning ourselves at the end of the problem, we had to go all the way to the source. So if we restore the environment's function, we can restore the environment's optimization and its capacity to store water in the environment. This can lead to early planting, harvesting, and then the mitigation of flood risk. Next, please. So we decided, why not increase the water intake of the environment and the soil itself, so that if we can capture the flood water, we could store it through the dry season, then that means we would have year-round planting and then consistent harvest. Next, please. This is the ideology that we've discovered that has completely changed everything that we do. And we call it upstream thinking. We first implement a solution upstream that then has effects downstream. If the land itself can store water, especially flood water, then the communities downstream will have less water inundation. If every single community upstream implements this idea, then it mitigates the risk downstream. Because we've gone all the way to the source of the problem, we have a mitigative downstream effect through our solution. Next, please. So oftentimes when we think about solutions and climate change solutions, we always go straight to the pain point. We choose the pain point and we attack it there, but rather we need to go all the way to the pressure points, address the pressure points first before we address the pain points. Next, please. For example, oftentimes because our river is overflooding, we tend to just look at dredging solutions. But actually we have weak, loose soil because tree felling. The soil is not strong enough. We also have surface water runoff and eroded banks. If we address these before we get to the problem, then we relieve the pressure points, which then relieves the pain point. Next, please. And this is the same thinking that we have in Lagos State. If we want to tackle urban flooding, we cannot keep looking at the river. Next, please. We need to go beyond the river, looking at the pressure points. Next. How can we start rethinking our ground cover to actually allow water as opposed to repelling water? How can we start looking at permeable concrete, permeable pavement, so that our ground can store water, it can be optimal for the water's function, and then it can release it slowly. Next, please. Next. This is just another example. Next, please. If we want to start combating inconsistent precipitation, then we need to reduce the evaporation rate. So we have to look at how we can create more shading. We have to look at how we can stabilize our ecosystem so that we are not having drastic rates of evaporation and drastic flooding. Next. So it's this is really what we've been practicing in ADAPT. We've been looking at upstream solutions. So if we want to combat urban flooding, we have to go all the way to the felling of trees and protect wetlands. Next, please. And if we create an upstream solution, then it will have downstream positive effects. Next, please. We need to realize that our solution is in an environment that knows no boundaries. We need to start realizing that if we're dealing with climate change, then we have to deal not just in our environment, but to the environments beyond us, looking at the rural, the semi-urban, and the urban. Next, please. Because our climate knows no boundaries, our solution must as well know no single boundaries. We cannot stay within state lines. We need to go beyond the borders and also beyond our country borders and also our regional borders. Next, please. So in the end of this, I really hope that we start to implement this kind of thinking, and in the end, I really hope that you all adapt with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate her. Right away, we move on to the second panel session for today, as I respectfully invite the moderator for this session, Esther Omopariola to please take over proceedings from here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Additional. Good afternoon, everyone. Like you rightly said, my name is Esther Mopariola, and today's session will be titled Transforming Energy Industry and Transportation. Okay, let me come in from the front for the cameraman. Right, fantastic. So this session is all about, it's a crucial one actually, because it talks about energy industry, transport sectors, and also remains the largest contributors to urban emissions, but at the same time, they represent major opportunities in terms of investment, innovation, and of course, job creation for Lagos and of course, across other mega cities in Africa. So, but our goal for today's session is to move beyond talk, to move into specific scalable mechanisms, and of course, decarbonization, financing, and a just transition as well, to truly transform Lagos into a resilient, low-carbon city. And we have interesting panelists here to give us discussions on this, to more or less unpack the perspectives while we'll be having our discussions today. So let me quickly invite our speakers. First, I will invite Dr. Muyiwa Gbadegeshin, the MD, Loma. Please put your hands together as he comes on. Thank you all, gentlemen. I think I'm the only lady here. Well, it's not bad. All right, so our first focus area will be on energy and industry. And we understand Lagos really has a lot of industries at the moment, and they all depend heavily on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels will mean diesel-powered generators and, of course, petrol, which aren't only expensive, but also major sources of emissions. So the first question I'll be asking is Dr. Adaju. Right, so we know that Lagos has this challenge in terms of carbon emissions, but first off, what specific financial regulatory incentive now can the state government introduce to accelerate the shift towards decentralized renewable energy and, of course, green mini-grids supporting industrial decarbonization and reducing operating costs?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on the panel. Thank you so much for having me. Lagos, let me start from some, concepts. There was a study that was done by the World Bank with Sustainable Energy for All to check the level of generator use in Lagos. It's called the Lagos Genset Report. It's an open source you could download and read. And residential household alone were using over 4.8 million generators and spending almost about $9 billion every year to power those generators. Now, if you consider industries and the rest, is huge. Lagos has the highest number of generators in Nigeria. Of course, Lagos is the commercial nerve center of Nigeria. Now, the issue is how can we turn this huge challenge into very massive opportunity? I operate in the renewable energy space with focus on what we call decentralized renewable energy. Another study done also by the World Bank through Boston Consulting Group shows that if we put panels on the rooftops in Lagos alone, we can generate 12,500 megawatts of power. I should think that should be higher than what the grid is supplying us. So that's a huge opportunity. So the simple business model that I'm used to is to say, look, how can we shift this spend, remember, $9 billion, and translate it into spending on clean energy sources? For example, deploying rooftop solar, a typical example. So that's one funding opportunity. So I say that the funding actually is in the pocket of Nigerians. We're already spending this money to buy diesel for our generators or petrol. Even as small as I better pass my neighbor. I hope you know this generator I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's a financial model. It exists already. We just need to find financial institutions who understand this game. I'm a former banker, my colleagues also were in banking in those days. We think creatively, and we do what we call leasing. So I started a company, and we're doing solar financing for corporates, for individual, for SMEs, displacing their generators and replacing with solar, and they pay over time. That's a very simple business model. But there are incentives that need to be created, and I must commend Lagos State. I mean, I've had a working relationship with Lagos State as a consultant with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, supporting what we call the development of the decentralized renewable energy plan for Lagos State. And Lagos is obviously taking the leadership. One, there should be fiscal incentives. And what does it mean? For example, in some other countries, there is an incentive for you to put rooftop solar on your house, and then you gain some benefits, maybe tax waivers and the rest, yeah, or holidays, right? Then there's also, in terms of how do we fast track? So a lot of commercial industries in Lagos have left the grid because they feel the grid is not stable. They cannot take the chances of a manufacturing process is going on and then you shut down. Starting all over again takes, so most of them are on other self-generation, diesel. So what do we need to do? Number one, create a model for what we call commercial and industrial solar, for example, and make it a fast track for companies to be able to sign what we call PPAs, power purchasing agreements, okay? We thank God for the state regulator who can make that happen also. And then in terms of financing, as the previous session was going on my head, I was just thinking, it should be possible for Lagos State to develop a green bond, because that green bond also provides the funding that will support residents and also deployment of alternative energy sources. So green finance, Lagos could also be the first subnational to be accredited by what we call the Green Climate Fund. So those are ideas on my head, and these are possibilities that we can look at. So Lagos, I must say, I must commend, is taking the leadership in Nigeria and now even across sub-Saharan Africa on improving energy access through clean energy sources. But we could rev up and build on this and power all Lagosians and take away the 4.8 million generators and replace them with clean energy sources. I say my vision is to kill all generators in Nigeria, and I hope I'm able to do that.
Fantastic. Please put your hand together for Dr. Adaju. Brilliantly put out there. So I'll quickly come to our Honorable Commissioner of Transport, and we're looking at the issue of road transport now, which is a major source of urban air pollution, of course, greenhouse gas emissions. But beyond importing EV vehicles, that's electric vehicles, now what kind of integrated policy or package, if you'd like, that can Lagos achieve to achieve a rapid and fair shift from private high-emission vehicles to clean and efficient public or active transport options?
Yeah.
Good morning.
To teach you how to pronounce myself. It's pronounced Oshiyemi.
All right, noted there.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Back to your question. Lagos being a very peculiar city, and Nigeria being a country where we're blessed with oil, we have a lot of battle to fight when it comes to transitioning from fossil fuel to cleaner energy. From the space of their belief and what they've always lived with, it's tough. But they are intentional and very strategic initiatives that can drive us there. The very first one would be getting a policy framework that will support the transitioning. And what am I trying to explain? Yeah, we can start from standardization of the kind of cars that we bring to the country. I would say we don't need any car below a particular year. For discussion purposes, I say 2015 of year of manufacture should not come into the country anymore. That automatically reduces the kind of cars that are brought in and also the fossil fuel. There should also be grants and strategic initiatives that will speak to the transitioning. Good it is that Lagos State has already started two. One in the space of land, which has to do with the the buses. We all know that a lot of our transportation when it comes to land is informal and composed of roughly 80-90% of our transport system. So there must be a strategic initiative that would systematically take away those buses away from the road. So within our agency, it's Lamata, we have a program called the BITP, which is Bus Industry Transit Program. In that program, what it does is it systematically takes away those buses, and then we scrap them and provide them with cleaner energy buses. Of course, with funding backed by World Bank and a couple of DFIs. We also have that ongoing on the waterways, which is a VITP, Vessel Industry Transit Program. If you go on the waterways, what you would see would be a lot of those banana boats, also informal. So there must be a way, a strategic way in taking away those buses and those boats and replacing them with buses that, of course, cleaner energy inclined and also do not make the people, the former owners, lose their jobs. So it's something that has to be strategic. Beyond that, you must also provide infrastructure that will speak to where you are going. The buses that will be bringing in, you must create platforms for private operators to be able to bring cleaner buses, maybe from the space of CNG to electric to whatever. You must create platforms whereby they can get funding and give them some form of guarantees as a state. Maybe ridership guarantee that they can take to financial bodies to be able to get loans in bringing those buses, and also guaranteeing their income by ensuring you give them routes that they can apply. Beyond all of that, we also, as a state, must create infrastructure, accelerate, for example, our rail system. We have two rail systems as we speak in Lagos now, the blue and the red line. The blue being green all the way is electric. And the green coming as well is going to be electric, is also green. So that way you are moving people in masses and you're creating a good public transportation that would be embraced by a lot of people. So technically and systematically, people will start dropping the vehicles at home and be able to get on those public transportation. You must make it affordable, you must make it very clean, and the experience on those buses or the trains must be one that will make them want to come back again. So, I mean, you must also create transport hubs that makes public transportation very seamless. We're speaking to two, as we speak in Lagos as well. There's the interchange hub in Marina ongoing that would finish by third quarter of next year, and also one in Mile 2. At these interchange hubs, you have where the land, the water, and the rail meets. So you can get off the train, get on your bus, or get off water and get on the train and continue your journey. So the whole essence is to create a seamless, affordable experience for people to be able to want to drop their vehicles. So there are so many things that we can put in place to ensure that this transitioning, one, is encouraged and also is achievable. I'll stop at this. Thank you.
Well, sir, please put your hand one more time for Honorable Commissioner of Transport, Mr. Oshiemi. Fantastic.
Thank you for that.
Yes, so, but I have a follow-up with regards to what you mentioned, because I understand that with this initiative that the Lagos Ministry of Transport is proposing, what about the operators? Because you mentioned the operators who will definitely be a part of this project. What is the likely possibility that they would key into this, seeing it as a positive and not taking their jobs totally, because that could be a challenge, don't you agree?
All right, thank you very much. Before embarking on this project at all, we had done a lot of stakeholder engagement, meaning even at the point of trying to put it together, feasibility studies and all, we did engage all of the unions, all of the stakeholders in that ecosystem, such that they were carried along ab initio, and then made to see the benefits. The interesting thing is that there are options within those initiatives. The VITP, for example, when it comes to the boats, you have the option of outright purchase, and I take your boat, I scrap it. You have the option of being part of the 78 electric vessels that we're bringing in. And you also have the option of going to feeder routes. So you would not be able to apply on the main roads. So if it's on the road, for example, if I take you off the road, I give you, you either drive the cleaner energy under some cooperative, you still earn, in fact, you earn more. So the benefits are clear to them, the journey and the experience and what they would, as long as they know what they're getting into, they would embrace it. That's what we've done. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. One more time, please put your hand one more time for the Honorable Minister, Commissioner, actually.
Oh, thank you. I accept that.
Commissioner. We want the promotion, we knew.
Amen to that.
Fantastic. All right, let's quickly move on now to our next issue of focus, which is talking about, still on the same matter now, our focus to the Managing Director of LOMA, Dr. Muyiwa Gbadegeshi. Now, to achieve a real scale in the energy and transport transition, local content and local manufacturing, no doubt, are key. But how can the government and development finance institutions now de-risk and fund local assembly and, of course, manufacturing of climate technologies like the EVs, we understand, for example, the components, solar panels and the likes, and, of course, the batteries, to ensure that transition creates sustainable green jobs in Lagos, and, of course, rather than depending solely on imported technologies? How do we do this?
I think one of the roles that government can play in this is simply through the procurement process. We need green energy. We need electric vehicles. And we need CNG. One of the troubling statistics that always comes to my mind is from a World Bank study from a few years ago that identified that in Lagos, we have $2 billion of health costs directly related to emissions from the transport sector. That's just, it sounds like a random number, $2 billion. But that, along with that $2 billion is about 11,000 premature deaths annually. And that's tragic. And this is why Lagos State government is at the forefront of this energy transition. An interesting story, at Loma, we have, in the PSP sector, we have about 1,000 compactor trucks, all diesel. At Loma, we have about 150 different types of trucks, compactors, also all diesel. So when we started the energy transition through the policies of the state government like LCARP, and then we heard about the presidential CNG initiative, and we went to Abuja. By the time we got to Abuja and engaged with them, came back to Lagos, we discovered that Lagos was actually farther ahead than the federal government, about 3 years ahead. And we started a partnership with Ibile Oil and Gas. And with Ibile Oil and Gas, we're converting 25 of our trucks to CNG. But we now have a policy that any new procurement is going to be CNG, and those trucks are being assembled locally in Ogba. In addition, we are introducing EV compactor trucks. And our policy, procurement policy, is that those compactor trucks will also be assembled locally. This will enable us to train and empower local technicians to be able to assemble, to be able to maintain those vehicles and the charging stations. Same thing with the CNG trucks. In partnership with Ibile Oil and Gas, we trained our own technicians to do the conversion of the trucks, and they're also able to maintain them. And we're also installing the dispensing stations in our facilities. And these stations will be available to the PSP operators so that they can also convert their trucks. So procurement policy of the state government is very important. Of course, we must also explore development finance. Locally, we're working with the Bank of Industry to seek cheaper financing for the procurement and also for, it's basically going to be a build, operate, maintain model because this is expensive equipment. An EV compactor could be about 250 million. So are you going to give that truck to a small scale business owner who can't afford to maintain it? So we're looking for that, a model that will have the build, operate, maintain so that we know that through the lifetime of the vehicle, it's always going to be, have maximum uptime. And I think those are two, the procurement and then also the development finance. And those are things we're already actioning. And we're quite hopeful that it's going to have a positive impact.
Well said. Please put your hand one more time for Dr. Gbadageshin for that insightful contribution. But I still have a follow-up with regards to this question, because we understand, even though this is a positive development, what about infrastructure? Do we have the readiness for that infrastructure base here? Because we understand we already have a challenge as we speak, and you're talking about bringing electric vehicles. Do we have the infrastructure to sustain that initiative? And of course, the capacity of the workers, the skilled workers, do we have the capacity to handle such a situation, if at all?
We have to build the capacity. We have to invest in that capacity. And it's not something that will happen overnight. And that's why it's driven by the policies of the state government. We have to start that hard work now. And the good thing is that at the federal level, they also have policies that are going to support this. I believe that an agreement was signed recently with a Chinese company that is going to build batteries locally. And they're going to train Nigerians to manufacture batteries and other components. There are a lot of other components that go into the electric vehicle that our technicians can produce and supply to the manufacturers. So there will be a lot of opportunities, but you can't achieve this without investing a significant amount in training and skill acquisition, and it has to be something that is intentional and also embedded in our budget, and that's what we're doing. Most of what we are doing in whether it's the transport sector or in the waste management sector, is through private sector participation. So our goal is to create jobs and to empower people, and that involves training. So we're going to do that.
Well said. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, can I just add to what he said? I mean, in addition to what Doctor just... Okay, I'll pay. You'll be the one to pay for it. In addition to what he said, I just wanted to use this opportunity to also share what we have in the space of infrastructure for EVs, i.e. the charging stations. We have, without trying to do advert for any bank, we have a particular bank that you can go to their branches and charge your cars. It's actually Sterling Bank. You know, you can also, I'm in conversations with a couple of private investors who are creating a big hub as charging stations. It would be nice to also mention that we have an EV assembly plant in Lagos. It's in Imota. So they bring all of these cars in as SKDs. It's called SAGLEF. They bring these cars in as SKDs and they put them together here. So, I mean, even our own over 75 electric vessels that we're bringing in for the Ome-Eko project, all the jetties are going to be electric. So it's already ongoing, and Lagos is on top of the show. Thank you.
Dr. Gbadageshin still have something to say.
Let me also add something. Because he mentioned Sterling Bank and Kore, the same Sterling Bank, I think one of the leading banks in terms of innovation, you know, their structure, they also have a circular economy subsidiary called Waste Bank. And we're partnering with them on a pilot project, Waste Free Lekki, where we've identified recycling hubs. And we want them to introduce electric tricycles that can be last mile collectors of recyclables, whether it's plastics or organic waste, from that community. And those electric tricycles will be manned by the informal waste pickers who we've already trained them. And so this is another way of formalizing the informal sector, inclusivity, and ensuring that we create jobs and we reduce the amount of waste going to the landfill. Because everybody knows that they're making a lot of money, but the manner in which they're making it is also destroying the environment because they're storing, you see all the plastics being stored everywhere. We want to change that. We want to have sustainable, green, last mile collectors from all 5 million households in Lagos going to community recycling centers and reduce the volume of waste going to the already full landfills. Thank you.
Well said, fantastic. Please put your hand one more time for our panelists. They've given such an insightful, giving us more insights in this conversation. So finally, Dr. Adaju, I'll come to you on this now. We mustn't overlook the human side of this transition. Now, the move to electric mobility and, of course, green energy will no doubt disrupt traditional sectors like the mechanics, like the Okada riders, the Keke Napep operators, and the likes, who form a large part of our informal economy. But what actionable roadmap do you think can ensure a just transition, one that provides skills retaining, access to finance, and ownership opportunities, turning these workers into partners and, of course, beneficiaries of the green economy?
Thank you so much. Let me start from the local content. It's also one of the areas where we can achieve what we call just transition. What does it mean? You are not trying to move people to a new way of life and then abandon their own livelihood. Okay, so if you are moving from what we call the IC vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, to EVs, what happens to the mechanics who are repairing IC vehicles? And it's a very simple strategy that was also done when mobile telephony came into Nigeria. So some guys went to the computer village and said, oh, you guys are already techie, you are repairing laptops and the rest. Can we just train you, add additional skill on repairing of mobile telephone? And of course, that's how the telephone became very easy to acquire and use, because you are sure that if there's any damage, there's one guy across the road you can approach. Now, so it's a simple analogy that we can use in this space. Number one, I also talk about Lagos State. I mean, I'm a private sector person, but I've done a bit of engagement with Lagos State government, particularly Minister of Environment. Thank you, Honorable Commissioner, and also my dear friend, PS, the opportunities of piloting these cases that can be scaled. One is, for example, training of generator repairers. There's a plan in place that we're working with through the Minister of Environment and Mineral Resources, whereby people who are repairing generators will be trained to become solar installers, to provide simple maintenance servicing of solar kits, right? And then you gradually transition them into this new way of life. When I go into the renewable energy space from banking, one of the customers I used to manage in those days were in banking were generator importers. I mean, you can mention the top 3 names. I probably won't mention them. So when I became president of the industry association, I started engaging them. You guys, you better start moving gradually into this space, because very soon your generator will become archaic. Nobody will buy it again. But of course, it was tough then. And then gradually, they started also coming to this space. In fact, I must mention this. Jibali Brothers was one of them. 100% generator retailer, importer, assembler in Nigeria some years back. Today, I'm very sure half of their business is in the renewable energy space. So it's just transition. So Lagos State is planning to train those mechanics on how to become, solar installer, and you make cool money. And then create a certification program where they can go to, and Lagos has a vocational training center all over the whole place. We're creating a curriculum that can be taught in those schools, and you can go there as a mechanic and get trained, get a certificate, and then become a solar installer. Who knows? A repairer of generator might just decide to abandon that bit and move completely to become a solar installer. It's possible. So that's one of the ways of enhancing this just transition. Then, and of course, the Honorable Commissioner has just talked about assembling of parts. Currently, Lagos has about 85 or 90% of the companies who are assembling and manufacturing solar panels in Nigeria today. Strategic positioning. I will use the typical case of one of our members in the association. It's called Oxano. He started actually from Alaba. We call him Alaba engineer. And then he gradually moved, and now he has a 100 megawatt solar assembly plant in Lekki. And there are many other companies coming to this space now. At the last count, we should have over cumulatively 800 megawatts of solar assembly capacity in Nigeria, 85% in Lagos. So that's, localizing this and then the just transition. Then, how do we also encourage adoption? And I will use a typical case, which I, if permitted, PS, Minister of Environment, will mention. There's an organization called 40 Cities. So they provided some seed funding, and we are test running a pilot in Lagos today, displacing that I better pass my neighbor generator, replacing with solar system, allowing those SMEs, barbers, hairstylists, to pay a token every week and use this system. And it's becoming real. There are some flyers out that you could even read from. So Lagos is also planning to scale this greatly, and in the long run, take away this huge generator that we're talking about. Just transition. And then SMEs are also part of it. You are training people who can become repairers. You are enhancing their livelihood. And then it becomes a win-win for everyone. For me, the market is there, huge number. The funding is also there. And I'm also mentioning the same bank you talked about. When I started my company in 2015, they were the only bank that gave us seed capital to say, go and test solar for barber shops. We are going to take the risk with you. Nobody was doing it then, but now it's becoming, so there's Bank of Industry, there's Development Bank of Nigeria that we can all raise funding from and deploy this. So for me, it's really a win-win and a very bright future I'm seeing for this in Lagos. Thank you.
Indeed, a bright future it is. Please, one more time, put your hands together for our amazing panelists. They've done justice to our discussion today. Definitely, it shows that transforming energy, industry, and transportation in Lagos isn't just about reducing emissions. It's about building a fair, inclusive, and prosperous future for everyone. Please put your hand one more time for our panelists. And that's where we end our discussion. I think we need to stand together for a group photograph. Okay, the Commissioner for Environment, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, and the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Gaji, and the Special Advisor to the Governor on Environment. Okay. I'm the only woman here. This is not fair.
Thank you very much. Please let's appreciate them once again for that very valuable session. The third session it will also hold simultaneously in this particular room, which is the Victoria Room. The title is Voices on the Front Line, Lagos Conservation Champions. While the other one in the Abuja Room will be titled Stewarding Forests, Oceans and Biodiversity. So for those of us, we'll be having some new people coming in here for the next panel session, which is titled Voices on the Front Line, Lagos Conservation Champions, while that of the Abuja room will be stewarding forests, oceans, and biodiversity. So it depends on which one we have interest in out of the two. This is Victoria room. So let's come in for the next panel session, which is Voices on the Front Line, Lagos Conservation Champions, which is taking place here in the Victoria Room. In the Abuja Room, we'll be having Stewarding Forests, Oceans, and Biodiversity.
A. Check, check. A.